Jane is a sophomore high school student. She once told her classmates that she was proficient in math. One day, her friends invited Jane to study math together. But Jane refused because she felt she had mastered all the material in math. The next day, the math teacher held a sudden quiz containing algebraic material that Jane believed she had never seen before. Jane told her friend that this material should not have been taught in school yet, and she had never seen a problem like this before. Her friend replied, "This question is a repetition of last week's class taught by Ms. Evans, and only the numbers have been changed. Yesterday we discussed it together in our study session." Jane refused to accept this fact and worked on the problem. With a heavy heart, she wondered to herself, "I'm sure I've mastered all the math material there is. But why can't I solve problems like the one earlier?" Now Jane is asking you, why do you think she can't do the math problems earlier, even though she's sure she have mastered all the material? Well, I'm sure some of you already know the correlation between Jane's story and the Socrates quote at the beginning of the video about how Jane's confidence is inversely proportional to her knowledge. Is there any explanation about Jane's situation? Yup, there is. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. The Dunning-Kruger effect is a cognitive bias in which people with low ability or knowledge in a particular domain overestimate their competence or expertise in that domain. In other words, individuals who are incompetent at a task tend to believe they are more skilled or knowledgeable than they actually are. The effect was named after social psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger, who first described it in their research paper in 1999. The Dunning-Kruger effect arises from a combination of poor self-awareness and a lack of metacognitive skills. People who are incompetent in a specific area may fail to recognize their own incompetence because they lack the knowledge or skills to accurately evaluate their own performance. This leads them to have an inflated sense of confidence in their abilities. So what explains this psychological effect? Are some people simply too dense to recognize it? Dunning and Kruger suggest that this phenomenon stems from what they refer to as a dual burden. People are not only incompetent, their incompetence robs them of the mental ability to realize just how inept they are. Incompetent people tend to overestimate their skill levels, fail to recognize the genuine skill and expertise of other people, fail to recognize their own mistakes and lack of skill. On the other hand, individuals who are highly competent in a particular domain may underestimate their own abilities because they assume that others possess the same level of knowledge or skill. This phenomenon is sometimes referred to as imposter syndrome or illusory superiority. Now let's take a look at this graph. What does it mean? The graph explains the events experienced by Jane before. At first, you would probably think that you know everything about anything, but then you started to learn that it's more complicated than you thought. At this stage, I prefer to call it the awakening process, where you'll tend to realize that things are bigger than you thought it would be. The average people in this process will choose either to things, give up, or continue to find out things they feel they are lacking. People who choose to continue the process begin to gain knowledge and self-confidence. Dunning and Kruger suggest that as experience with a subject increases, confidence typically declines to more realistic levels. As people learn more about the topic of interest, they begin to recognize their own lack of knowledge and ability. Overall, the Dunning-Kruger effect highlights the importance of humility, self-reflection, and continuous learning in order to overcome the biases that can distort our perception of our own competence. So is there anything that can minimize this phenomenon? Is there a point at which the incompetent actually recognize their own ineptitude? To overcome the Dunning-Kruger effect, individuals need to develop self-awareness and accurate self-assessment skills. This involves seeking feedback from others, engaging in self-reflection, and being open to learning and growth. By recognizing their own limitations and acknowledging the expertise of others, individuals can develop a more accurate understanding of their own abilities and make better informed decisions. By incorporating these strategies into your approach, you can gradually overcome the Dunning-Kruger effect and develop a more accurate understanding of your abilities. Remember, the key is to remain open-minded, receptive to feedback, and committed to ongoing learning and growth.